Begin tonight with that stunning Supreme Court ruling striking down President Trump's authority to use emergency powers to impose sweeping tariffs. Trump gets a lot of 6-3 decisions from the Supreme Court he helped put together, and he usually likes what he gets. Of 25 cases involving the White House last year, the Supreme Court only ruled against Trump 4 times. So today's decision was a rare rebuke, ruling his cherished tariffs were illegal under the Constitution. And the president was clearly incandescent with rage about it.
But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country-destroying embargo. I can embargo. I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1.
Chief Justice John Roberts wrote today's opinion, saying in part, the president asserts the extraordinary power to unilaterally impose tariffs of unlimited amount, duration, and scope. In light of the breadth, history, and constitutional context of that asserted authority, he must identify clear congressional authorization to exercise it. In other words, he can't do this on his own. Conservative justices Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett joined Roberts along with the court's 3 liberal justices. The decision was a major setback to the centerpiece of Trump's second-term agenda, both economically and in terms of foreign policy. In the White House briefing room, Trump gave his own lacerating dissent to the ruling and those justices who supported it. A spokesman said the lighting in the briefing room was dimmed to signify what he called dark MAGA.
I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. They're just being fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and the radical left Democrats.
Now, all this might make next week's State of the Union a little awkward, where members of the Supreme Court sit in the front row, just feet from the president.
They are invited, barely. Barely. 3 are happily invited. No, they're barely invited. Honestly, I couldn't care less if they come.
Now, Trump's not taking this decision sitting down. The president is now following the implicit advice from Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who wrote in today's dissent that the tariff decision might not prevent presidents from imposing most, if not all, the same tariffs under other statutory authorities. And today, Trump moved swiftly to do just that. He posted just before we went on the air on this show that he signed a global 10% tariff on all countries, effective almost immediately. One major unanswered question in all this is what's going to happen to the billions of dollars in tariffs already collected? The Supreme Court's ruling didn't address any of that. And Justice Kavanaugh said in his dissent that the refund process could be a mess. According to at least one estimate, we're talking about $175 billion. Other estimates put that number even higher. Let's kick off our coverage tonight with NewsNation's Joe Khalil, live for us outside the White House. Joe, there's been a lot of reaction to this ruling. What are you hearing in Washington?
Oh, yeah, a ton of reaction already, Elizabeth. And I can tell you the responses to this administration losing this case in the Supreme Court doesn't exactly fall neatly along party lines. Yes, there are certainly a lot of MAGA-aligned President Trump allies that are Republicans who reacted the same way he did, slamming the court's decision. But remember, you don't have to go very far back to a point when the Republican orthodoxy really was very anti-tariff. Tariffs sort of run counter to free trade, free markets. So there were a lot of Republicans who, in that vein, actually agreed and celebrated the decision. One of them we can put up here, Mike Pence, somebody who obviously very well known to President Trump. He said that today's decision is a victory for the American people, a win for the separation of powers enshrined in the Constitution. Another sort of free trader libertarian, Senator Rand Paul, who said the Supreme Court defended the Constitution by rejecting the use of emergency powers to impose taxes. He says tariffs are taxes. Now, there were others, Susan Collins, Mitch McConnell, Congress members Don Bacon, Thomas Massie, Mike Turner, and others who put out very similar statements. On the flip side, tariffs used to be something that was a tool that many Democrats used to sort of protect manufacturing. And obviously, since the tariff regime came forward from President Trump, Democrats have been using that as a bit of a foil, especially leading into the midterms, in terms of affordability. This is the key campaign message, and Democrats are pointing to the tariffs, saying this is why costs have not come down. We can start with Hakeem Jeffries. He says that the Supreme Court decision striking down the harmful Trump tariffs is a big victory for the American people, another crushing defeat for the wannabe king. And Senator Elizabeth Warren also celebrating the decision, but saying the ruling won't undo the damage to Americans paying higher prices on everything from groceries to housing. And then she says refunds must end up in the pockets of Americans who were illegally cheated out of their money. It's an interesting point about refunds, Elizabeth, because as President Trump himself said in a real frustrated way today, the Supreme Court did not anywhere in their opinion address the more than $130 billion that has actually come in terms of tariff revenue. And we know there are corporations that are lining up, threatening to potentially sue to bring that money back. They claim they've eaten those. So that is a big open question still that we have yet to parse out what exactly happens to that money.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.